Napoleon basically took over all of Europe. So they could no longer maintain their empires, like in the Americas. So there's really two phases of imperialism, old imperialism and new imperialism. Today we're only talking about old imperialism. Let's talk about definition. What's an empire? What's an empire?
One person or thing.
These people are conquering these people. It's different from like the Holy Roman Empire. We've been talking about the Holy Roman Empire. That's Germans conquering non-Germans. Okay? But now we've got, it's a whole nother level. It's Europeans conquering non-Europeans. So there's this added level of kick-assness. Causes. I'm going fast. Basically, we could say God, glory, gold. Have you heard this before? God, glory, gold.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, first of all, let's just talk about that for a second. God, glory, gold. God. What's going on in Europe at this time?
Religion.
Reformation. Glory. Did Columbus want glory?
Yes.
Sure. You know that. Gold. What's gold? Money. Okay. Let's talk first about other causes specifically. Number one, Renaissance technology. There was a rebirth in everything. So was there a rebirth in technology? Yes. Let's talk about the lateen sail. On the screen is a lateen sail. What came before a lateen sail? Picture an old medieval ship. What do you call the sails?
Square.
A square sail. That was replaced by the lateen sail. What shape is a lateen sail?
Triangular.
Therefore, it can be bigger. And look at the mast. Do you see how it bends on an axis?
Flexible.
Therefore, it's more flexible. Therefore, it can hold more torque. But therefore, you can angle your ship better. Where did this technology come from? Arabs, the Middle East. It was taken from the Middle East during this time. All these books and stuff are translated, etc., etc. Talk about the astrolabe. These are astrolabes. And compasses, both. First, let's talk about a compass. I think you know what a compass does. What does a compass do?
Direction.
Points north. So now you're on a boat. What does it help you do?
Direct.
Direction. Okay. Do you know what an astrolabe is?
It shows
Sun.
where you are.
It shows the movements of the stars, and it helps you keep track of the movement of the stars. So it helps you figure out what?
Where you are.
Where you are, what do you mean where you are?
Latitude.
Latitude and longitude. So now if you know where you are in the globe, and you know directions, you can figure out how to get where you want to go. And then in 1477, a key book was translated. Say Ptolemy. Ptolemy. Where do you think Ptolemy's from? Ancient Greece. Why was this book translated during the Renaissance?
That's what they did.
It was Renaissance. The book was called Geography. Ptolemy, back in ancient Greece times, like 500 BCE, pretty much this was his map of the world, and he thought that the Earth was round. Now that had gone out of fashion, that theory. But it made a comeback in the Renaissance. In other words, people thought that if you sailed a boat, you would just fall off the edge. But because there is a rebirth in Greco-Roman philosophy, people are saying, hey, I think this Earth might be round. In fact, it translated into European languages, modern European languages in 1477. Okay, now let's get trickier. That is the technological element. Now there's a political element. Suddenly, you have these new things in Europe that you've never had before. And in today's English, we call them countries. I'm going to start calling them nation states. And you're going to start to see what I mean. This is Spain. Today, who lives in Spain? Which
Spaniards.
people? Spaniards. It wasn't always like that. Before 1492, Spain was a bunch of different kingdoms. All the people in all those different kingdoms spoke Spanish. But there was no such thing as one unified country or a nation-state called Spain. In other words, there was no single state. There were many little states, like city-states. And the nationality of all those people was Spanish, but they didn't unify. 1492, they started unifying. So once again, like Italy, totally not unified. It's not a nation-state. It doesn't do what Spain does in 1492. It's a bunch of little tiny city-states. We're going to start calling these new monarchies. And I'm going to lecture on this next week. They're new because they're not feudalism anymore. Feudalism is dying. And all of a sudden you have these new nation-states. They want to take the power and concentrate it into the hands of as few people as possible. Here are Ferdinand and Isabella. They are the king and queen of two different little kingdoms. They get married, they unite their kingdoms, and suddenly Spain is born. So these new monarchs are trying to consolidate power. And these are the people that kicked the Jews out, took the Muslims out, tortured anybody, any heretics during the Reformation. You better believe that they or their relatives were persecuting Lutherans and all that stuff. Why do these people want to go discover new lands? Why send Columbus out in 1492? Money, 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 money.
They were in debt.
They want money. Who doesn't want money? You all want money. I want money. Money sandwiches, money breakfast cereal, money all the time. Religious rivalries. Let's talk more about that. Why do the Catholics now want to go conquer territories in America? Convert people to Catholicism. That way, more Catholics than Protestants. Take that, Martin Luther. What did Martin Luther ever conquer? Nothing. So now it becomes competition for land. New stuff. Let's talk about a joint stock company. What's a stock? What's a stock market? Stock.
You invest in.
You invest in
Company.
a company. There were never companies before. Around the Renaissance, you started to have banks, and now you also start to have these things called joint stock companies. There is a company. They need more money. So what they decide to do is they decide to literally break their company up into little pieces called stocks and sell those stocks to investors. They would do that so they would get more cash. So let's say you have a shipping company. You're an entrepreneur. You want to make more money, don't we all? So you take your shipping company, you break it up into little pieces, and you sell those stocks to investors. Now you have more cash. So now, finding new lands becomes a business enterprise. We call it a joint stock company because people own it jointly. I own it, you own it, we own it, all that stuff. So this is a very new thing. Just like there are these things called banks, there are these things called companies. You take them for granted. Back then, they were new. The economic theory of the day is mercantilism. Read the definition with me. It is an economic theory that holds that the total volume of global goods is unchangeable. Stop right there. Gold. Can we make more gold? No, it's unchangeable. Keep reading. Therefore, gold, also known as bullion, should flow into a country, and exports should go out. So a favorable balance of trade is maintained. In other words, these two dorks, the king and queen of Spain, say, we want all the gold. Not only do we want all the gold, we want to sell you stuff. What's a Spanish product? Olives. Silk. Olive oil. Not only do we want all the money, we want to favor a balance of trade. The way we're going to get all the gold is we're going to sell as much stuff as we can and get all the gold. And pretty soon we would have it all, and everyone else would have nothing. And we would dominate everything. You learned this as the triangle of trade in middle school. Remember that term, triangle of trade? The Americans were great at this. Get slaves, sell weapons, sell tobacco. But who really wins here are the European countries. Because all the money is going to them. We're going to call this mercantilism. It's also sometimes called bullionism. Let me see if I can explain the difference. In the beginning, bullion, this is gold bullion. You understand each of these things weighs like 80 pounds, right? It's solid metal. In the beginning, it was just about getting gold, literally. Everybody just wanted the gold. But eventually, this turned into a system we call mercantilism. Say mercantilism. Accent on the merc. Make it happen on your page if you have to. Mercantilism. Don't say mercantilism. Although you can say that too. Eventually, it started to be with all products, not just gold. I want to sell as much stuff as I can, like tobacco. Think back to the American colonies. So I can maximize my profits. We'll talk about mercantilism for the next few weeks. Okay, now, those are just your causes. Lots of causes. Some are economic, some are political, some are religious. Now we got to talk about all these people who you forgot who they are. You learned them in like 5th grade. The year is 1415. Portugal sends a guy named Henry the Navigator out from Portugal. Let's look at Henry the Navigator's route. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Let's talk about Ceuta. Ceuta is this little piece of land right here in Africa. Portugal is up here in Portugal in Europe. They eventually established a little base on northern Africa. What is their goal? Why establish a base here in Ceuta? They want to get slaves, absolutely. They are the originators of slavery, the Portuguese. They're also the originators of banking. I think they're related. So they want to take slaves. But eventually, they would love to be able to creep down the African continent and down this coastline, and eventually they would love to get over this way. What's over here? Asia. And what's in Asia? Silk and stuff, but also lots of people. And we just said, what do you want in a mercantilist economy? You want people to buy your stuff. So there's potential consumers over there that you want to sell stuff to. Henry the Navigator sets up a shipping school. So he is not only an explorer, but he teaches other people how to sail. So Portugal is the first country to really get their foot in the door of imperialism. They are the first ones to basically say, we want to be able to dominate as much as we can. Let's talk about Diaz. Where's my Diaz slide? Oh, here's Diaz. Diaz is the first Portuguese person to actually get down the coastline of Africa. Not only does he get down the coastline of Africa, but he rounds this little thing down here called the Cape of Good Hope. A cape is like the tip of a continent. He gets all the way down here. That's pretty remarkably fast. So within that span of about 60 years, Portugal went from being at the top of Africa to the bottom. And they would have to go down, deal with malaria, deal with natives, deal with people chucking them into the water like in the movie. Try to conquer these lands, set up forts, set up trading posts, get water, find food, all that stuff on a totally raw continent. By 1498, Vasco da Gama gets all the way to Kolkata. Where's that? India. So now the Portuguese have not only left Africa and dominated Africa, but they're dominating Asia. They're one of the first people to get from Europe over to that part of the world. There have been other routes, but how have people gotten there? Land. Now they can sail, and sailing is a lot faster, and you get to look at the mermaids on the way. This is extraordinarily important. By 1500, the Portuguese get to Brazil. Brazil is obviously in the Western Hemisphere. It's in South America. Now they have 3 continents in their empire. And in 1494, they make a treaty called the Treaty of Tordesillas. Say Tordesillas. Actually, it's Spanish, so we should say Tordesillas, or however they would say it in Spain. They decide to divide the world along the line called the Treaty of Tordesillas. The Spanish get everything to the west of this line. Everything. Spain says, we get the whole world over here. And Portugal says, fine. We get Africa and Asia, and we get all this stuff over here. Who's going to get the better end of this deal? Think about it, Spain. Because you know they're going to get Mexico to Chile. That's going to be totally all their territory. The Portuguese are going to end up with Brazil. To this day, people in Brazil speak Portuguese. But eventually, Portugal is going to get kicked out of all these other parts. So this is actually great for Spain. They don't know it at the time. They establish a capital of Sao Paulo. What does Sao Paulo mean? St. Paul. Don't forget, the Reformation is going on. These people are really interested in spreading religion as well. Ansel, you getting all this down? Good. Sent by España. Christopher Columbus. First of all, he's Italian. He's not Spanish. Why do the Spanish choose? Why doesn't the king and queen of Italy send Columbus?
They rejected him, didn't they?
There is no king and queen in Italy. It's not unified. Only Spain is unified. Only Spain has the money. Only Spain has the power. Only Spain has the connections. Heck, Italy doesn't even have the connections. And the Pope lives right there. The king and queen of Spain are the ones that have the power. They hire him. They say, we're looking for a continent. You want to go find it? He says, sure. They stick him on a boat. 1492. He finds the West Indies. Let me tell you about the kind of guy Columbus was. Columbus turned to his crewmates and he says, first guy to spot land gets $10,000 a year for the rest of his life. Stipend. It's night. Somebody on the boat sees land. It's actually his friend named Rodrigo. They're friends. They've been sailing together their whole lives. Hey, Christopher, look, I think I see land over there. That's it. Columbus says, that's great. You have found it. $10,000 the rest of the year just for you. Thank you so much. Go to bed. In the morning, we'll wake up the others and tell them. Columbus makes sure the next morning he wakes up first. He wakes up everybody on the boat. He says, look, I found the land myself. That's the kind of land. That's the kind of guy Columbus was. They get off the boat. First question is, where's the gold? That's what they want to know from the natives. Natives don't speak Spanish. They don't know. Nor do they care. Why is gold important? It's shiny. That's it. Period. End of story. It's a horrible metal. It's terribly weak. You can break it in half. That's why they used to bite it, to make sure that it gives. You can leave teeth marks in it. Oh, look at this cheap-ass stuff. But the Spanish want it because it's shiny. The Indians say we don't have any. Columbus takes out his sword. He starts chopping off the ears of people until they find gold. There's no gold on the island where they land. They're in the West Indies, in the Caribbean. So Columbus starts piling all the Indians onto the boat, and they sail them back to Spain as slaves. Problem is this. These people in the Americas have never been exposed to European diseases. Africans have. Africans make great slaves because they don't die. Because there's been all this exchange of disease for the last thousands of years. These people literally didn't have the common cold. Columbus walked, he sneezed, that's it. 10 million people died. Not a joke. There were possibly 30 million people in this continent. About 90% of them died within the first few years. Boom, millions. Genocide. The first island he landed on, every single native person, that whole race of people got wiped out. And that happened from island to island to island. So we're talking about total devastation and takeover. What does Columbus want? Here's his route right here through the Caribbean. Couple of things. He wants slaves, he wants gold, and then he convinces the Spanish government to set up the encomienda system. An encomienda is basically a large plantation, what we would call it, a big farm. Why would you, as a Spaniard, want to leave Spain and move to the Americas and set up a farm and a church and Christianize people and grow stuff? That way you have ownership, because you know 90% of the population of Europe are peasants. So all of a sudden the Spanish government is telling you, if you move out there to the colony, we'll give you an encomienda. It's your own farm. All you literally have to do is put a church on it, and it's yours. So now the native people are learning Catholicism, which they probably don't want. Some of them are forced into slavery, etc., etc. But Spain really has its footholds in America. By 1507, Amerigo Vespucci names America America after himself. So by 1507, from 1492 to 1507, what's that? In 15 years, Europe basically claimed America as its own and named it after itself. Flip it to the back. We're more than halfway done. Cortés does the same thing. The year is 1519. He lands in what today would be Mexico. What are the native people there? Aztecs at the time, and there were also some Mayas. Biggest city in the world at the time was Tenochtitlan, Mexico City. The Aztec Empire was the biggest civilization in the world. If aliens from outer space wanted to know where the center of civilization was, it was there. Within 2 years, Cortés has conquered the whole thing. The whole thing. Most of it is being done by disease.
Isn't there a name?
Smallpox, which sometimes is purposefully given out to Indians in blankets and things to kill them. He wipes out a large percent of the population within 2 years. They claim Mexico as their own. By the way, Cortés, what does it mean? Courteous.
Wow.
Oh, and by the way, there are 3 major empires, so don't forget. There's Inca, Maya, Aztec. So all 3 of these will eventually fall to the Spanish. The Inca were probably already on their way down, as were the Maya. The Aztecs were thriving. Millions of people in that empire become subjugated. By 1513, the Spanish figure out a way to get across the Isthmus of Panama. What's an isthmus? It's a skinny piece of land. So now that they can cross the Isthmus of Panama, you get it, right? Now they can go this way. So in other words, we're laying the foundation for being able to go all the way around the world and conquer the whole thing. And it's good because it's ours according to the Treaty of Tordesillas. Ponce de Leon! By 1513, he gets to Florida. Florida, what does it mean? Land of
The Floritians.
flowers. Beautiful, beautiful. They get to this piece of land that we would call America. I want you to know that that is when your continent is basically claimed by Europeans in 1513. They're on the mainland still today. Because if you go to Florida, the oldest cities continuously in the United States are there, actually. So the Spaniards are the first ones to claim it. Hispanics were here first. Magellan, sent by Spain, but he's Portuguese. Look at what Magellan does. Awesome. He starts sailing here. He goes down here. He goes over here. He goes this way. He sails around. He's coming this way. Woo-hoo! He's going to go all the way around the world. Except in the Philippines. The Filipinos don't particularly like a Spanish person there trying to claim their islands, so they chop him up and kill him. But his crew makes it all the way around the world. So Magellan becomes the first to circumnavigate the globe. Kind of. Do you give him credit, yes or no? What do you think? Does he deserve credit?
No.
He got himself killed. What would Machiavelli say? Francisco Pizarro. Here's Pizarro right here. I just wanted you to know that the Spanish sent one more person to finally conquer the final empire. That's the Inca Empire in Peru. That also is an extremely quick conquest. So now the Spanish have everything. They have everything from North America to South America. The only thing they don't have is that little bit of Brazil that is for Portugal. Crazy. England wants to get in on the game. Let's talk about Cabot. The guy is not actually named John Cabot. He's Italian. The Italians are good sailors. The English hire him. By 1497, he gets to Canada. So this is Cabot's route right here. They go straight across like this. Why go straight across? What does geometry say?
Straight
is faster. It's faster. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line right here. So they're going to start to claim Canada. there's a problem here. The English have North America. Who else has North America? Spain and Portugal. Well, Spain has North America. So this is going to lead to one battle after another after another. One that you just read about, the destruction of the Spanish Armada in 1588. 1577, let's talk about Sir Francis Drake. This is Sir Francis Drake's route. He goes all the way around the world and he actually makes it. So who did it first? The Spaniards or the English? You decide.
Definitely the English.
Who did it first, Ansel?
Definitely
The English, thank you. In 1497, he claimed, where are we? Circumnavigation. He does circumnavigate the globe. Now, I got to tell you something kind of crazy. What do they really want to be able to do? Look how inefficient this route is. Oh, this is a horrible route. What would they rather do? They want to find something called the Northwest Passage. They think if you sail northwest, they could go through here and then come out to Asia. Look how much shorter it would be. But that is a non-existent route. It's all ice and polar bears and Santa Claus. You can't get through there. However, today you can get through there. Why?
Global warming.
Global warming. It's not stopping. So for the last 500 years, it's been an impossible dream, but now it is a great dream. And on the way, you can point at all the drowning polar bears. Okay. Oh, whatever. They taste good. Okay. 1588. He's the one that defeats the Spanish Armada. He's the one that defeats the... So Queen Elizabeth hires him. His job is basically a pirate and an entrepreneur and a sailor. She says, hey, a bunch of Spaniards are going to invade. Can I borrow you for a while? You want to kill some Spaniards? He says, sure. Nothing I like more than dead polar bears except for dead Spaniards. Let's do this. By 1607, he sets up the English set up a colony called Jamestown. Named for who, by the way? King James. They're all going to be named for somebody. Virginia. Who's that named after? Who's the Virgin Queen?
Mary.
Elizabeth. Mary. Okay. Queen Elizabeth. 1607. That is when England claims America. So we were a colony of England from 1607 till 1776, of course, when we're going to declare our independence. But the English now have their footholds in Canada and also in North America. 1612, we've got to talk about the Dutch East India Company. First, let's talk about what the East Indies are. What are the West Indies?
West.
Why did Columbus call America the Indies? He thought he was in India. Not only does he mean he's an idiot. So we call Indians Indians because Columbus got lost. So then they had to start calling India, you know, like where the Indians are, like the Hindustanis. We had to start calling that East India. So now we're talking about East India. The English also claimed East India around the year 1612. Why? The English East India Company is formed. What kind of company is the English East India Company? It is a joint stock company, a sailing company. In other words, somebody gets a bunch of investors together. They say, hey, we want to sail around the world. We need money. Yeah, I'll do it. Let's top up this company. Boom, 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 boom. Let's make some money. Let's do this. Now the English also claim India. They will have it till 1948. Think about it. We're talking about empires that are going to last for 350 years. Crazy. Heck, the French get in on the game. Jacques Cartier. Say Cartier. Cartier. Not related to jewelry. 1541. The French are really into rivers. Rivers. They love the rivers. They start to sail down the St. Lawrence River. Once again, notice the name. Everything's about religion. St. Lawrence. Saint Laurent. 1541. They are going to claim inland Canada. So the English are on the coast, the Spanish are on the coast, but the French really want to burrow into the continent using the river systems. By 1608, they set up a capital there called Quebec, around a lake called Lake Champlain, named after Samuel de Champlain. So basically what I'm telling you is that the French penetrate into the interior of the North American continent, and they will also claim that. So now you've got the English, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, all claiming this continent. Sure, they have their different areas. By the way, all these rivers connect. So a certain river down here, called the Mississippi, through the Great Lakes, and so of course this is called Louisiana, named after King Louis. So that all becomes French territory. Think about it. Okay, Netherlands. Gosh, even the Dutch get in on the game. They formed the Dutch East India Company in 1602. What kind of company is that?
Joint stock.
Joint stock sailing company, 1602. So they are also going to send people to the East Indies. In other words, today that would be Indonesia. That's what they claim. The English want India. The Dutch want the islands. I don't know why they want the islands, but they want the islands. The islands are pretty good, I guess. They send Henry Hudson, an Englishman, and he also claims a piece of your country, Albanese. That's in New York today, 1609. So now the Dutch are in East Indies, in other words, Indonesia, in other words, near India, and they're also here in the Americas. So now a bunch of different people claim America. You see how this is going to start leading to problems. Who's going to get it eventually? The English, and then the Americans. I wanted you to know 1626 they buy Manhattan. At the time, it was owned by Indians. What did they buy Manhattan for? Seashells. They sold it to the Indians for seashells. The Indians use seashells as their currency. So the Dutch say, we have seashells. You want them? Yeah. What do we get in exchange? We want Manhattan. You know what Manhattan is today, right? It's New York City. It's like worth a gajillion dollars for seashells.
What a deal.
What a deal. Right. So New York, named after a city in England, York, used to be called New Amsterdam. The Dutch were there first. The English then bought it from the Dutch. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
It's a dog.
It's probably something German related. Maybe it means like old, in the past, something like that. That's what I'm going to put. Because I think it probably comes from the word York. I'll look it up. Sounds like German. 7. Okay. Effects. Who's that dork?
Spanish.
This is Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. He's funny looking, right? We call that the Habsburg jaw. You'll learn why he has it later. It's because deformity. It's because his parents were inbred. So it just gets passed on from one to the other. That's Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. Or did Martin Luther just hit him hard in the jaw? Okay, here we go. Let's talk about effects. First of all, let's talk about the price revolution. This is a good slide for the price revolution. Stop. Read your definition. The influx of gold and silver into Europe at this time, plus a rising European population, there's more people and there's more money, led to a huge economic disaster. Stop right there and think about it. You have one gold piece. It's the only gold piece in the world. How happy are you? Very happy. Tomorrow, all of a sudden, there are 70,000 gold pieces. Now your gold piece is worth 1/70,000th of what it was worth the day before. The economy is very delicate. So all this gold and silver coming into Europe actually created an economic downturn. And we call that economic downturn the price revolution. What's a price? How much you're going to pay. So if you were a peasant and you had 14 little mini pieces of money, but suddenly the next day they were worth a fraction, you now had to get more of those things to pay. So you're a peasant. The price of bread goes up 8 times. Multiplied by 8. You go to the store today, you want to buy a loaf of bread and it's $20. If you're a peasant, now do you eat more or less? You eat less. Where's all the money going? Into the pockets of the kings and the queens. So this system is great for the wealthy, but it's horrible for the commoners. That's why in 1789, you're going to have revolution. Ultimately, we're sowing the seeds of revolution here in 1492. The Columbian Exchange, named after Columbus. There is a massive exchange of biology from one continent to the other. So what moves from Europe to the Americas? Let's think about it. First of all, white people. Are white people alive? Yes. So that is part of the Columbian Exchange. Slaves are part of the Columbian Exchange. They're moving from one place to the other. Let's talk about some of the nasties. Disease. There was no plague in the Americas. The Europeans gave plague to the Americans. So that's no good. What foods come from Europe? Generally bigger animals. Horses. So there were no horses on the plains where the Indians lived in the Americas until the Europeans brought them, the Spanish brought them in particular. Cows. Big things tend to come from Europe. Probably because the continent is oriented this way. And those animals can move around a lot. The Americas are oriented this way. If you want to move from here to here, you've got to cross a desert. Not so easy. So Europe just had bigger life on it. Elephants and stuff come from Asia. Nothing big over here in the Americas. Buffalo is the only exception. Which foods come from Europe? Other things? Let's talk about, nothing good. Boo. Let's talk about the Americas and how awesome they are. Anything you eat on Thanksgiving is native to America. Corn is an American food. It comes from America. Tomatoes are from the Americas. The Italians did not have tomatoes before they got them from the Americas. The Irish did not have potatoes before they got them from the Americas. Potatoes are native to Peru. So you have this massive exchange of food. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, you're Irish. All of a sudden, it's 1845. You have potatoes. It's supposed to be grown here in Peru, in equatorial part of the world, where it's like 80 degrees and 90,000% humidity. And all of a sudden, you're growing these potatoes here in Ireland. So then the potatoes start to die, and then there's no food. And then 3 million people die in the course of a year. Potato famine. So this Columbian Exchange is kind of problematic. It's good and bad. Or you bring one plant over here, suddenly it takes over a whole continent. some sort of weed.
in Hawaii.
Yeah.
There weren't any until they
There
came
weren't.
over.
They came over. That's part of the Columbian Exchange. Slaves are part of this exchange that rarely gets talked about. Millions of people are going to be moved from Africa to the Americas. Most of the slave traders are European. They're the ones trading the slaves. Most of the people enslaved are African. But the place where they're doing the labor is the Americas. 6% of the slaves went to America. 6%. That means the rest went to South America and the Caribbean. That's why when you look at a country like Haiti today, it's like 99% black. Here in our country, we're 14% black. So we were somewhat affected by slavery, but the rest of the Americas were highly affected. Now, this is the saddest day. This is today the world population living on less than $2 American a day. So in other words, the darker the country, the more poor it is. So which countries are rich today? All the countries that did the taking over. So if you're a European country and you kicked someone else's butt, today you're a rich country. And if you're one of the countries that got your butts kicked by Europeans today, 400 years later, you're a dirt poor country. So the effects of this imperialism are going to be extremely far-reaching. And there are some exceptions, of course, like Australia. But that's because Australia was part of England. And America was part of England. And Greenland, we don't know anything about. That is the night sky above Columbus' ship. Actual photo.
He must have been, I mean, no wonder he got lost. He wouldn't have any stars.
Yes. Thank you. Figure it out. I'm not telling you. Second of all, what is your homework for this weekend? Cornell notes. You don't have much room.